And good day. Thank you for joining us on Truth for Our Time. I am Tamara Scott. You are listening to us either live, joining me at 10 a.m. on Webcast One Live Studios, as we do every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time, or you're listening on 99.3 FM, the Truth Network in Central Iowa. 99.3 FM, Truth Network, Sundays at noon. So you can join us there on the radio in Central Iowa or across the globe on webcastonelive.com. Any Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And we thank J. Michael McCoy, for sharing the studio with us. Producer Chris is in the studio today, manning for Goose, who's on vacation. We hope he's having a great time I think he's in the Rockies. And we thank 99.3 for sharing the air with us. And we thank you for joining in. I wouldn't want to be on air a minute without God, but enjoy every minute He gives me with you, and thank you for tuning in as we help you live God's Word in today's world. And boy, aren't there all kinds of situations we deal with today, but as the headlines hit home, we offer you God's Word, because if He expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it somewhere in His Word. So we always come back to the biblical basis on this show. Today, joining me, several guests, a packed hour, and I thank God for that as well. I love it when He aligns my day. We have first Joy Wehmas. Joy is with the Wall That Heals. This is the probably scaled down model of the Vietnam Wall, and it will be coming to Des Moines, Iowa, Living History Farms, out on Hickman Road, September 29th to October 2nd. We'll be talking to her shortly. And then at 10:18, Senator Tom Cotton will be joining me. Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas. Of course, I did my homework and even talked to the National Committee woman, John L. Fulmer, down there in Arkansas this morning. And boy, she just had glowing reports, just a praise of their Senator Tom Cotton. We'll look forward to talking to him. I've posted a couple of things on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page. In fact, I've got him on my Facebook page too, but we'll make sure that they get on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page. He has several comments out on the things that you and I care about, like 800 immigrants who were to be deported, many of which were to be deported, many of which are from countries of national security risk, and somehow they were given citizenship. We'll talk to him about that later today. And then later in the show, David Brody from CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, will be joining us. Though he's in Des Moines, we're going to do the interview by phone, so we'll look forward to talking with him as well. Right now, let's go to Joy. Joy is on the line. Joy is with the Iowa, let me make sure I get the term right. It is the team welcomehomeiowa.com. Joy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for this opportunity to share.
You're very welcome. So the wall is going to be at the Living History Farms, and folks can come by. We certainly want them to come by. Does it cost to come see the wall?
No. Actually, we're going to be on the front lawns of Living History Farms, and the Wall That Heals and the mobile education trailer that it comes in will be open 24 hours and will be free admission.
24 hours. That's very unique. Why the 24 hours?
Because there are a lot of, to give that opportunity for people who may not want to come in a crowd, to come and pay respect to the more than 58,000 names on the wall.
I appreciate that. It's coming in on the 28th. That's a Wednesday. Now, as it comes, Joy, this is a group, our Vietnam veterans. You know, we weren't very good at actually honoring. We were thrilled when our World War II veterans came home, but we really didn't allow them to tell their stories because they were so horrific. Many of them were dealing with them themselves. But the Vietnam veterans, it was a whole other issue, and we were not even very welcoming when they came back home, and for that we do apologize. We're still learning as human beings and from our own history. This is a great way now to help them heal, which is why you call it the Wall That Heals.
The VBMF, this is the Wall That Heals that is owned by the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund out in Washington, D.C. And yes, it is to help recognize and welcome home and thank the Vietnam veterans for what they did do. And they did not receive that welcome home before.
And whether someone agree with the cause or the mission, you can always agree and thank the military men and women who have offered themselves to serve, who have taken time away from their families, sacrificed those moments and memories with their own children, and sometimes sacrificed their all. And those are the folks that will be on this wall. It's the very least we can do is to pay respects. One other thing we can do is you need help. People, you can need help on Wednesday as the wall comes in.
We need volunteers all throughout. Wednesday, what is going to happen is we're going to have motorcycle escorts will be meeting at Iowa Speedway in Newton at 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10. After 10, we will be heading out and escorting the semi-trailer that carries the wall. And we will be going down I-80. We're going to be coming through Altoona. Then we're going to be coming through I-235. We would love to have people out there with flags and signs waving in the overhead bridges and the safe areas for pedestrians, waving them as we come down 235 to help welcome in the trailer.
And so 235, you'll get off on what exit from 235?
235 will get off and come back on I-80 back into Hickman.
Okay.
Off of the Interstate
235
80.
to I-80. Okay. And then you come back east on Hickman there, just a block or so into Living History Farms. And so the motorcycles are meeting at 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning. If someone has a cycle, and we know there are so many cyclists who are so incredibly patriotic, we love to see the rides that they do. If they want to join you, do they need to contact you first, or can they just show up at the Iowa Speedway?
They can show up, but it would really help us tremendously to get an idea of the number that we're going to have. If they could go to our website, www.teamwelcomehomeiowa.com. And if you go to the volunteer page, there you will find where you can sign up to be in the motorcycle escort. And there will also be more information and more details on timing and the exact route.
Okay. And also at that same tab on volunteer are the other opportunities, because you have several, where we now need to step up and volunteer and serve those who served us.
We really need a lot of volunteers. I mean, an event of this size does take a lot, and we need people to help with parking. We need people, an important job is helping people find names on the wall and assisting and answering questions there. And what a rewarding
if someone
position.
Doesn't feel like they may know the answers, do you have a brief training for these folks?
We do. On Wednesday night from 5:30 to 6:30, those volunteers will, there's a training, which also gives them an opportunity to come and see the wall just after it's been set up, because it'll be set up on Wednesday afternoon, and then it'll be open after it's set up. It's open then for that 24-hour time period. If
someone has church Wednesday evening, can't get away, but they could help you on a Friday morning or in the middle of the night as a volunteer, should they come anyway and let you contact you?
You know, they can. And like I said, they can sign up on our website if they're interested. There's several different opportunities, whether it's helping at the wall, whether it's being at the information booth or assisting others. I mean, there's just numerous opportunities. And they're 2 and 3 hour shifts. So pretty easy.
Okay, so that is Team Welcome Home Iowa. Team Welcome Home Iowa. There's a website. There's also a Facebook page. If someone doesn't have computer accessibility or just not as savvy, sure, is there a phone number they can call?
There is, 515-444-1918. And Candy will just be able to answer the questions, definitely.
515-444-1918. 515-444-1918. The wall rolls in literally on September 28th. That's a Wednesday evening.
No, it's in the afternoon.
Oh, it's an afternoon. I'm sorry. Give me the time you think that's going to come in.
Well, actually, I said afternoon. It's really, we hope to have the arrival at 11:30.
11:30. So, folks, if you could, over your lunch hour, carefully, cautiously, safely stand on one of the overpasses along the roadside, wave your flag, let the wall and the escort, the motorcycle escort that will come through with it, know that you support them. 11:30 is the estimated time on Wednesday, September 28th. And the path, if you want the absolute sure path, you can go to the website there at teamwelcomehomeiowa.com. And if we click on volunteer, that's where we'll find the path.
It'll be on the motorcycle escort. You know what? We're going to be adding more of that. So if you can give me until like tomorrow or Sunday, we'll have that more solidified on there.
Absolutely. By the time this show airs on Sunday at 99.3 for the local Central Iowa network on Truth Network, you'll have that information up. That's great. Well, Joy, I appreciate your willingness. How did you get involved in this?
You know what? I happened to attend a convention and heard the president of the TCA, which is the Truckload Carriers Association. They help arrange the transportation from location to location. And he spoke about this project, and it just touched my heart. And there were two others there that also heard this talk, and we decided it would be the thing to do to try and put together a committee and bring it in.
If someone has a local business, can they join? Can they help you with sponsorship?
Yes, they can. And our programs are printed, but we can add them on our website, and definitely would love to have them participate.
And for anybody out there listening, of course, donations in any amount are always appreciated and necessary to help make sure this wall travels. And here's why, folks. You've heard me talk about education before. Our kids in public school are just not hearing the truth. They're not hearing our history, and certainly there's nothing like seeing it. Whether you're homeschoolers or not, this would be a great opportunity to bring the homeschoolers out any time of day to see this wall and understand that freedom is not free. The cost, and now the whole Vietnam, I'm not going to get into the mission of whether people agree or disagree what we were doing in Vietnam, but our military and the service that these men and women offered themselves to serve for America, it's an honorable, it's what sets us apart from so many other nations, a voluntary military. And so it's an honorable feat. And if you could bring your folks, your kids, your parents, relatives, every high school student needs to see this as well. And that's going to be at the September 29th through October 2nd, rolling in the Wednesday the 28th, on the front lawn of the Living History Farms. It costs you nothing. It's open 24 hours a day. Phone information 515-444-1918 or teamwelcomehomeiowa.com. And same is available on Facebook. Joy, did I leave anything out?
You know what? We do have, you mentioned schools, and we are having school visits on Thursday and Friday. So if there's a homeschool group or there's a group that wants to come out, if there's some schools that are listening that still want to be a part, give us a call. We'll have some special tour guides for that on Thursday and Friday.
If you have
also,
a student...
we have events with speakers every day, including Larry Spencer, who is a POW for 2,551 days. He's going to be speaking on Thursday.
Is he from
Iowa? We have another speaker. Huh?
Is he from Iowa?
He is. He was originally from Earlham, Iowa, and he lives in the area, yes.
And who else?
Ed Roner is going to speak on Saturday, and he's going to share from the other side the perspective as a name on the wall and visitors walking by.
Okay.
That's on Saturday. Dan Gannon is going to speak on Friday, and he's going to do reflection and remembrance, and he's going to talk about the 50th commemoration. All of this is, we're at a 13-year celebration or commemoration over the ending of the Vietnam War. So we will have pins available for Vietnam veterans. They're a special 50th commemoration pin that has been made. It's part of the Department of Defense.
And so this is the 50th year since the ending of the war.
Well, it's over this 13-year time period that they're doing that.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a 13-year time period that they're doing the commemoration.
All right.
And these pins are just a small token to say thank you for the guys.
Well, Joy,
and ladies.
I thank you for what you are doing to help us have this opportunity and experience here in Central Iowa. Folks, if you're hearing this, whether you're on your way home from church or whether you are working, think through the people you know that might appreciate seeing this. Think through the students you know, college, high school, who need to see this. And do what you can. Call a local government teacher you know, a political science teacher you know, a Christian school you know, and ask if there's some way you can help get the students there. Maybe it's a donation as far as transportation. Maybe it's just time. Maybe it's just letting them know it's out there. Again, Joy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And look for the flags across the front of Hickman.
Very good. Right there.
We have about 160 of them flying and waving there across the whole front.
Which the Boy Scouts are helping you do. All right. Listeners, we're out of time for this break. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Senator Tom Cotton on 99.3 FM, Truth for Our Time, webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I've purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And we are listening and waiting for Senator Tom Cotton to call in. While we are waiting for him, let me just recap. That was the wall that heals, going to be in central Iowa in front of Living History Farms, which is just off Hickman, which is right off of I-80. Very easy for you to get to, just a block or two off of I-80. And, of course, they're going to be taking the route, bringing it here with the motorcycle escort if you want to participate in that. Iowa Speedway, 9 to 10 a.m., Wednesday morning. You can meet at the Iowa Speedway, follow in, but they'd like to know if you're coming just so they have some idea of planning and safety. And you can do that on the volunteer portion of the website and under the ride, and that's at welcomehomeiowa.com. A neat opportunity for us. Senator Tom Cotton, let me just tell you what I've learned about him as I started doing a little bit of investigation. I called and spoke with the National Committee woman for Arkansas, John L. Fulner, and she gave me a glowing report. What I've also heard of him, and is this him on the phone line right now? Senator Tom Cotton?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for calling in. You are absolutely on the dot of the time we gave you. I shouldn't expect anything else for a military man, should I?
What they used to say in the Army is we're time on target, plus or minus 15 seconds.
Absolutely. And, you know, I had to look up a little bit of information about you, and I just called your National Committee woman who had just an amazing report. Very pleased with your service. Honored to have you representing Arkansas. And she told me you went into the military. You opted to go into the military after 9/11.
That's right, Tamara. I took an unusual path into the military. You know, lots of young Americans did after the 9/11 attacks. I was in my last year of law school on those attacks, and that changed my life forever.
And just tell our listeners, where was law school?
I was at Harvard Law School.
I just wanted to get that in there so they understood. All right.
But I redeemed myself by joining the Army. And, from that day forward, I really wanted to serve. So I worked for a couple years to repay all those loans I had taken. And then I left my law practice and I enlisted in the Army and became an officer and an Army Ranger in the 101st Airborne at Iraq. And I served in Afghanistan as well and served at Arlington National Cemetery with as a member of the Old Guard. So I spent about 5 years total on active duty.
And what John L. was impressed with was you didn't take a JAG position where you were in a safe place. You wanted out on the line. You wanted to be in the battle.
I did not. You know, the recruiting sergeant, who's a very good, capable staff sergeant, told me when when he asked me what I did for a living, and because I was wearing a suit, and not many new recruits come into Army recruiting stations and strip malls all across America wearing a suit and tie, and I told him, or maybe I confessed, that I was a lawyer. And, he said, sir, you can be a JAG attorney, you get more rank and therefore more pay. It's not quite as long a training period as it is to be infantry. And if your goal is to go overseas, then you'll get overseas faster. I said, no, I really want to be in the infantry and be an officer and go be an airborne ranger. And he said, you must not be a very good lawyer then, sir. He may have been right about that, but he signed me up, and I was fortunate that I got to do everything I joined to do. I became within about a little more than a year. I was a airborne and ranger qualified infantry officer, and then I was leading a 40-man platoon from the 101st Airborne in Baghdad. 10 years ago today, actually, I was over there.
Well, we thank you for your service. We were just talking our last segment, the Vietnam model of the wall is coming through Iowa shortly, and we want to, of course, honor those who have given their all. But we thank you for giving your time and your service. And at that time, I think what I was reading is you wrote a letter to the Times, perhaps it was, and that letter, though the Times didn't publish it, ended up on a conservative blog, and that is what I'm told propelled many in Arkansas to ask you to run for office.
Yeah, it's amazing the afterlife that this short little notice had. So it was a little more than 10 years ago, probably the summer of 2006. I was leading my platoon in those days on what we called long-range patrols. So I was away from our big base for 4 days at a time. We were more or less cut off from the world, no internet, no TV, no radio there. But we'd come back for about a day and a half to, do our laundry, get a hot meal, take a shower, and catch up on some email and news. And I saw that the New York Times had once again disclosed a highly sensitive and classified intelligence program. And this time it was one that no one disputed was fully legal and briefed to Congress and supported by Republicans and Democrats alike. So I sent a little note to them telling them that we didn't appreciate it over in Iraq, and that I hope that they ended up behind bars for violating our espionage laws, not at the Pulitzer Prize stand. And then I left for another 4-day patrol and came back, and let's just say that the word had gotten out quickly about my note when the Powerline blog picked it up. And at first I thought I was going to get in some trouble from my chain of command, but I was saved at the last minute by the Chief of Staff of the Army, Pete Schoonmaker, who had actually come back from retirement. He had been the commander of the Delta Force, and he was called back to be Chief of Staff of the Army. And he had circulated my note to all the Army generals and encouraged them to send it out to their troops as an important reminder about the need for operational and information security. So he saved my bacon at the last minute.
But what you were writing was absolutely true. And Donald Trump has been mocked. Hillary Clinton, his opponent, has got an ad on TV that, he wants to be unknown. He wants the element of surprise. He's not going to tell the enemy what we're doing. And for me, never having been in the military, I think it's a great strategy that you don't tell your opponent on the basketball court what your play is going to be. It just makes sense.
Of course not. So it's important that we be firm in our commitments, because that's the simplest way to deter war and aggression against the United States is to make sure our adversaries know that we have both the ability and the will to fight one and win one if necessary. But you don't telegraph what that means. So, for instance, we have a long-time alliance with Taiwan, the only democracy on Chinese soil. The only thing our president needs to say is that we will stand by our alliance with Taiwan. We don't need to explain how we will do that. That bedrock commitment is the only thing that's necessary to deter China. Secondarily, I would say now that I'm in the Congress and I'm on the Intelligence Committee, I can tell you that there are ample channels for any dissenter or whistleblower within the intelligence community to raise questions about potential illegality. They can go to an inspector general inside of an agency. They can go to the Department of Justice. They can go to the oversight committees. The last thing anyone should do is go to a reporter who will make the judgment whether to disclose those highly sensitive programs, because that person has never been elected by the American people and therefore is not accountable to them.
Absolutely. And we also know, we've seen it very clearly this election cycle, the journalists that we have always thought played to be neutral are not neutral and have an agenda of their own. I want to jump to one of the issues that just came out a couple days ago. You have already put a statement out on it. The folks who are supposed to be deported, many of them from issues as nations of national security risks, and somehow they were by air given citizenship, by ERROR, they were given citizenship. How does this happen, and what is our recourse? Tell me, there's got to be something we can do.
It's an example of the kind of typical mistakes that bureaucracies make all the time. So the fingerprints of these individuals were never digitized after they were taken, I think, back in the 1990s, and therefore, when these individuals simply lied about their identity, then our immigration agencies didn't have the records needed to say, no, you're not this person who you say. You're actually someone who has been identified for deportation. It's just another reminder of the risk that we face if we continue to allow mass immigration and we don't secure our borders, stop illegal immigration, and if we can't verify the identity of those people who are here in the United States already, what makes you think that we can verify the identities of people from broken lands like Syria or Afghanistan or Somalia or so forth?
Great point. So do we have recourse? I think of the men and women who have tried the legal process. I know people who spent 10 years and tens of thousands of dollars trying to become legal citizens. And now we have these folks who they admit many were to be deported, now have citizenship.
So there's always recourse against naturalized citizens like these individuals. If they lied or made material misrepresentations in their applications for citizenship, then their citizenship should be revoked. Obviously, when you're dealing with several hundred criminals who should have been deported, not granted citizenship, the proper course of action is to identify where they are now, to revoke their citizenship and deport them, as should have happened years ago. Should
we see swift action as an executive? Shouldn't someone in the bureaucratic branch of the executive branch, the president's administration, somewhere, shouldn't we see someone disciplined or fired over this?
We should, Tamara, but unfortunately that's not often the case in the Obama administration. One reason why these fingerprints weren't converted from paper to digital formats, and therefore one reason why this mistake happened, is the administration never sought more money from Congress to continue that digitization of the fingerprints. It just goes to show their misplaced priorities. They were more focused on trying to print legal papers for 5 million illegal immigrants who have no right to be in this country legally than they were doing the most basic and tasks of their job, which is to identify those people who have committed crimes and should be deported.
And you're talking about the 5 million, the papers are creating for 5 million people to become legal. Can you touch on that? Because what do you mean these people trying to become legal?
So there's approximately 12 million illegal immigrants in our country now. Barack Obama spent years saying that he didn't have the power to grant them reprieves from being in a deportable status. That simply means that if they have an encounter with the law, if they're arrested committing a crime, for instance, that they'll be turned over to the immigration authorities and deported. It doesn't mean they're being rounded up or being currently held for deportation. But after the 2014 election, Barack Obama flip-flopped on what he had said for many years, and he purported to grant temporary legal status to up to 5 million illegal immigrants, saying that the administration would never, under any conditions, deport them. Again, not saying that he was going to or forbear from going out and rounding up 5 million illegal immigrants, because clearly he wasn't proposing to do that. But even if, for instance, they'd committed some kind of crime and had been turned over to the immigration authorities, that he wouldn't deport them. He claimed that was prosecutorial discretion. But prosecutorial discretion, Tamara, as you and all your listeners know, is a case-by-case basis. You identify someone who may have committed a crime and you think you don't have the evidence to prove it. Or maybe there's a strong moral reason. There's a compelling hardship, like an ill child, for instance. And you grant discretion on a single case. It's not across the board saying 5 million people won't be subject to deportation. That's not enforcing the law. That's creating the law. Fortunately, the lower courts in our system have blocked that order from going forward. But that's a reminder of the stakes in this presidential election. The Supreme Court has not reached a final decision on that order yet. If Hillary Clinton is elected and fills the empty seat on the Supreme Court, then it will almost certainly be blessed and will go forward without any action from Congress. Millions of illegal immigrants will get legal status.
And not just one seat, but she'll probably fill 2, possibly 3.
And no, this is not, so it's not, that element of this election is not a 4-year choice. we are probably making a 40-year choice on the Supreme Court in this election. And that alone is enough for so many Republicans to say that Donald Trump is going to be better as president than with Hillary Clinton, because we've seen the names that he's released of his potential Supreme Court nominees. And they're sound, reliable, principled, conservative jurists who know that a judge's law is to interpret and apply the law, not to create the law.
First candidate I've never known that put a list out approved by the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. Very impressive when Donald Trump did that. Now, I have a question for you, and I know I don't want to stop you from talking about anything that you might have for our listeners, and I think we only have you for like 15 minutes, so I don't want to stop you from talking about something. But question for you. If the Senate goes Democrat, because this is an issue as well in those nominations and the consent of a Supreme Court justice. If even if we would win the presidency, but the Senate would go Democrat, does the Senate have time in there with Obama before he steps away, and then the new senators come in earlier than the inauguration? Could they slip quickly in a Supreme Court justice?
So that's a good question, Tamara. So the new Senate, by Constitution, unless it's changed by law, comes into office on January 3rd. Barack Obama doesn't leave until January 20th. That's a 17-day window in which a new Democratic Senate could confirm an Obama-appointed justice. However, given the Senate rules and the sometimes slow pace of the Senate, as many of your listeners observe it, even a Republican minority should be able to run out the clock in those 17 days. And I can tell you that I will bring COTS onto the floor to stop a nomination from going forward if I think it's going to be worse than a Hillary Clinton nomination in those 17 days. The more important thing we can do, though, rather than make that kind of pledge, is simply elect Donald Trump, beat Hillary Clinton, and hold the U.S. Senate.
Absolutely.
That's one reason why it's so important.
Absolutely. Our time is up this segment. I thank you for joining us. He will be here October 8th with the Iowa Republican Dinner, October 8th, Iowa Events Center. Go to the Republican Party of Iowa, the Iowa GOP, to get your tickets. And Senator Cotton, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to meeting you myself.
Thank you. Great to be on with you. See you next month.
Very good, folks. You can get more information at the Iowa GOP, and stay tuned with us. We'll be back with David Brody from CBN.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing. We have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
And thank you for staying tuned with us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time, helping you live God's Word in today's world. Because if He expects you to live through it, He has directed you how to do it somewhere in His Word. So I thank you for staying tuned with us. My guest already, what a great lineup we have had. I thank God when He just lays it out before us. And the airtime is His, and I'm just thankful that He allows me to have some of it. And with you, thank you for joining in as well. The wall, the memorial wall, will be here September 29th to October 2nd at the front lawn of Living History Farms. It costs you nothing, and you may go at any time during the day and night, 24 hours a day. I absolutely love that. Volunteers are needed, as you can imagine. What a great way we can serve those who have served us as we serve their memory and their legacy. You can get more information there at teamwelcomehomeiowa.com, teamwelcomehomeiowa.com. My last guest, Senator Tom Cotton, and I will continue to post things on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page, Truth for Our Time Facebook page for some links. He just gave a great speech on the floor, I believe, even yesterday, concerning law enforcement officers and what we need to be doing to ensure peace and their protection as well, both ways, for our communities and for those who protect our communities. And I think it always starts with relationships. But he will be here, Senator Tom Cotton, October 8th for the Iowa Republican dinner. And that will, doors open 5, dinner at 6, and it's done by 9 p.m. Branstad, Grassley, Ernst will all be there, along with the chairman, Jeff Kaufman of the Republican Party. It'll be at the Iowa Events Center. So get your tickets, iowagop.com, go to events. Joining me now, David Brody. David Brody is with the Christian Broadcasting Network. He's very active in the political element and in following what's taking place. David, thank you for joining me.
Oh, so glad to be with you, Tamara. How's everything?
Very, very good. Now, here, I'm just going to ask you straight up, as a journalist, as a Christian, and you very humorously have a great way of talking about your Jewish background, and as a Christian, so we would call you a Messianic Jew. And you...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you follow politics. So for our Christians out there who have already washed their hands trying, because Pilate tried it, and it didn't work for Pilate either. But they're trying to wash their hands of an election and not be involved. What do you say to them?
Well, I think, first of all, let me just say, I understand that there are folks that just can't, quote, get there with Donald Trump. If you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, if you're a Christian, first and foremost. I get that, and I don't go before them at all and judge anybody. I would say this, that I think the potential way for people to get there, if they're going to ever get there, is to not necessarily realize that they're voting for a man, but realize what's at stake here. And I know we've been talking, or there's been a lot of talk about the Supreme Court and onward and onward. But the reality is that do you want 0% of principles and Christian values, biblical values, or do you want potentially 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever it's going to be with Donald Trump? You're not going to get 100%. The question becomes, how much of that do you want? Or do you want 0%? So, I think if you look at it from those terms, 0% to, let's say, 66%, then maybe you have a different outcome. But, there's a lot to be made of it. I would just say this. There is a different side to Donald Trump. He doesn't like to show a softer side. He doesn't like to show as much his compassionate side, even though he'll say he's compassionate, but doesn't really like to show it in public because he's the law and order guy. He's the tough, brash New Yorker. I think if he did more of that, and I think we're seeing more of that recently, then I think that would bode well for him overall.
Yeah, I actually do believe that he ran because as a man who can give his children and grandchildren anything he would like, he sees their futures Demming as America's future Dems. And I do believe that he is running to help restore a nation, like the interview he had with Oprah Winfrey so many decades ago. He would run if he had to, if things got bad enough. And so I believe he is running to restore a nation, and I think in the process, God is refining a man. I see a different side of Donald Trump, even in his word and his speech and what's happening to him in the process. I do believe he truly is developing a love for the people. And when I hear at the Republican National Convention that the crowd chanting Donald Trump, 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 or something like that, Trump USA, he turns it to USA. He seems to be in this for service. And for those out there who are suffering through this dilemma, part of it is the spin that you've heard from Christian leaders, and that's unfortunate that some have gotten so involved that their own pride and I would say arrogance is stopping them from moving forward. David, you're right. This isn't about having tea with someone. This is about picking the best opportunity, whether we have an advocate or an adversary as Christians in the White House. And Hillary Clinton has fomented the war on Christianity. He says he'll end the war on Christianity. And I would tell people this: God God called the imperfect to serve as apostles. Imagine Peter, on which God said, on this rock I'll build my church. And yet Jesus had to say, Peter, get behind me, Satan. So Peter wasn't perfect. And my concern is that these folks are going to be so busy picking apart Peter, we're going to end up with Judas.
Yeah, well, I think it's such a great point, Tamara. And I would just say this. I've interviewed Donald Trump in this election cycle about 6 or 7 times, going back to 2011 since I've known him. It's around 20 times or so. And I've seen a difference in him throughout this campaign, especially in the last 3 to 4 months. And I would say this. When I interviewed him, the last time I interviewed him was about 2 weeks ago. It was at the Values Voter Summit in D.C., and I asked him this specific question. I said, how do you believe God might be changing you through all of this? What have you learned exactly? And it was typical Donald Trump in terms of his New York kind of business model fashion. What he said to me was fascinating, and it wasn't very detailed, but if you listen closely, it's interesting. What he said was, well, I have to tell you, David, as I've been running for president, if I never ran for president, I would not be in many of these churches, knowing many of these people that I've come into contact with pastors, and all of these experiences that I have been experiencing myself firsthand. It's been very, very interesting, and I've been taking it all in. That's what he told me. So if you just extrapolate that a little bit and realize, well, what could that mean? Well, I think what it means is God is on the move. I don't think there's any question about it, and I think Donald Trump may be slowly but surely starting to hear some of that, if not audibly. For sure he's hearing it audibly, but maybe there's a softening, maybe there's something more coming of this. I think we're seeing something a lot more spiritual here that could actually take place if indeed he becomes the President of the United States, or even if he doesn't, God's at work. I do too. And, the Bible's full of stories of God using the least likely, the unlikely, sometimes the unlikable. And I just think, I agree with you. I see momentum. I see a groundswell, and it's not just political. There is a spiritual element, what you and I would call revival. And right. I'm very happy to see it. When he says the very basics of, you'll be able to say Merry Christmas again. I've heard Christians mock that. That's very real in our culture today. You probably see it as much being out on with the folks, but we are dealing with so many issues, whether it's girls walking in, college-age girls walking into the bathrooms here at Kinnick Stadium only weeks ago as men and young boys were using the urinals. It's an assault. That's an affront. Well, Tamara, if I could just say something that I think is pretty important here, is that I've been around the block a few times through quite a few of these campaigns, and even if you go back to George W. Bush, but let's just start with John McCain in 2008, then Mitt Romney, 2012. I interviewed both of those men a couple times, but every time I interviewed them, their handlers would be all around. What do you want to talk about? What exactly is going on here? It was like, okay, we're talking to CBN. Well, that means, no, we got to watch out for the gotcha questions or the social conservative questions or what's going to be, we don't want to make a YouTube or at that time, whatever it was, some sort of clip that was going to make news. And it was very protected. They were very guarded, both Romney and McCain. Donald Trump, the guy that is supposedly not the, quote, Christian candidate, he doesn't care. And how do I know that? I'll tell you exactly why. Because none of his handlers in the 6 or 7 interviews that I've done in this campaign cycle have ever asked me for topics or a list of questions. They don't even want to know where I'm going with the interview. They said, sure, we'll interview with you, no problem. And that never happened with Romney, never happened with McCain. So why is that? Well, it's very simple. It's because Donald Trump knows what Donald Trump believes. He's speaking from the heart. He's speaking from the gut. Does it get him in trouble sometimes? Absolutely. But you know what? At least you know where the guy stands. And, he's got the fascinating skill, if you will, of being a billionaire who speaks like a cab driver. And it's something that if Mitt Romney had in 2012, he may have been able to pull off. Donald Trump can do it.
It's a great point. We always heard that Romney was just too rich to connect with the everyday voter. And look, Donald Trump, every bit as rich, if not more, absolutely connecting, which is what I think is a God thing as well. We've got to go to a break here. Can you stay with us, David Brody?
You bet.
We'll be right back after these messages. Please stay tuned for more of Truth for Our Time with Tamara Scott on 99.3 FM, webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And I am Tamara Scott. You are listening to Truth for Our Time. Thank you for staying with us. Voiceless, the movie, will be in theaters here in the Central Iowa area October 7th, 2016. Voiceless looks like a good movie to see. There have been several great movies out this year. If you haven't seen 13 Hours, if you haven't seen Hillary's 2016 America, you need to see that. Dinesh D'Souza, met him when he was in had to report to the detention facility every evening. It was quite an interesting conversation with him. I'm talking right now with David Brody from CBN Christian Broadcasting Network. David Brody, how can people follow you?
Well, they can pretty simple. Go to just Google. I've heard of something called Google, and you type in the Brody file. And once you type in the Brody file, our website will come up along with Facebook and all of that good stuff. So, and I'm on Twitter at the Brody file. And you know, it's a show about faith and politics, and we call ourselves a combination of Meet the Press, a dash of Comedy Central, and a sprinkling of Jesus. And you know, it's something a little different, and it's just a way to engage folks from a spiritual, faith, Christian perspective, where, you know what, guess what? Newsflash to America. Christians are not all these stuffy, you know, intolerant folks. Hey, folks, we have something to say, and we're going to say it. We're going to kind of be bless your heart, but a little bit in your face about it.
And of course, you were here with the Iowa Pastors and Pews Conference, the Iowa Renewal Project, and also Bill Federer spoke, and he did a great job of taking us through the first governors, the first governor in Connecticut, and the preambles of each colony and all of their faith, and the fact that even the Mayflower Compact, how we were founded. You know, when people say I can't get involved in government or my faith doesn't allow me, our government is derived from our faith, from the faith of our founding fathers. We would not have this government without God and our founding fathers and their belief in Him. David, I had just in break, I'd ask you a couple questions I wanted to run by you, but I'm going to change gears. So sorry to do that on you. I think you'll be okay. I want to ask you about the civil rights, the statements coming out of the Civil Rights Commission. As someone who served on the U.S. Commission for Civil Rights for the State Advisory Committee for Iowa, faced it myself when I got a letter telling me that since they had realized I was a Christian, I needed to respond and let them know what purpose or good I could still serve on the committee now that they'd been made aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what's happening at this level of government, any level of government, is just, there's no other word for it, insane. And then what happened is now with the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and they're talking about basically, in essence, what they're saying, and this is a new report that just got released a couple weeks ago, but the chairman there basically saying that religious beliefs are okay. In other words, you believe in Jesus Christ, great, knock yourself out. Religious conduct, however, is different, and it is, in essence, this is according to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, is discriminatory. Religious conduct is discriminatory. That is a major issue. These are folks that were appointed by the President of the United States, or would be appointed by any President of the United States, depending on who it was. And so the bottom line is when we're getting into very dangerous territory, and I think it goes to a larger issue, Tamara, which is simply this. So let me get this straight as the sarcasm drips here. The First Amendment is okay inside the four walls of your church, but it's not okay outside. In other words, what's going on here exactly? Basically, what liberals, and I've talked to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I've talked to many other liberals about this, they're saying, look, whatever you do inside your church is fine, but when it gets outside your church, as it relates to conduct, bakers and florists, serving, services, the whole thing, that's a different matter. Well, hold on for a moment. I didn't realize that the First Amendment was just for inside your church. I thought it was an actual amendment to the Constitution that applied to all spheres of life. So this is real problematic. And
some folks I hear deriving a difference between freedom of religion and freedom of worship. Does that issue concern you? To me, I make the statement, and then someone will come up to me afterwards and say, "You should have said this." Is there a difference? I mean, to me, we've always known freedom of worship and freedom of religion in this country, but apparently some feel like if we use one phrase over the other, we're going to limit ourselves.
Yeah, I think the words, we know from since we were in kindergarten, or at least we thought we knew, but we really didn't, that words do matter. And I think that depending on what the words are and how we say them, Christians are no doubt under attack. And I think, unfortunately, let's be honest. We're the majority in this country, but the reality is we're really. But the sad part is we feel we're in the minority. That's the issue for Christians. Whether or not we can get our act together, and honestly, it's something I said the other night, which was that look, the LGBT community, we might not agree with them on anything. As a matter of fact, we don't agree with them pretty much on anything. But I'll tell you what, one thing I wish I had that they have is fight. They've got some serious fight in them. They will not give up. They believe they're principled in what they believe in. And I wish we would have the fight behind our principles because we've got the numbers, we've got the army.
David Brody, CBN. Couldn't say it better myself. I love what you're talking about. You're absolutely correct. I try and remind our listeners and our viewers, there are more of us, millions more of us, who really don't want somebody walking into the bathroom as your young 8-year-old may be at the urinal, or as your young 13-year-old might have gone to the restroom by herself. I've had several of these stories come to me as we've talked about this on the show. There are more of us. And beyond that, David, the Bible tells us that greater is the power in us than those that's in the world, and that we have been sent to be conquerors. If we only believed that we had the same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead, and we do believe that as Christians, we believe that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead. If we believe that power is available to us, what is holding us back?
Well, I 100% agree, and I would just say this. We always love as Christians to say, well, you know what? God is in control. You know what? That's right. God is in control. But the last time I checked, there's something called free will. And God gives us free will. And that free will doesn't just extend as it relates to salvation. It also extends to the voting booth, to what you do in your local community. And look, I remember there's a pastor, Rob McCoy,
yes,
Calvary Chapel in California, who said, look, take care of your own bean patch. In other words, your local community, what's in front of you. A lot of these transgender bathroom bills and a lot of other things that we don't even know what's about to come up here in the future, it all starts at the local level, PTA, school board, county commissioner. This is where it begins, and then it escalates from there. That's where to start, your own bean patch.
Great teaching, David. Thank you. And Rob is working and acting, not just words. He now serves on the city council out in, I think it's Thousand Oaks, so that's suburb of LA. And you're absolutely correct. Folks, so if you're out there listening and you wonder what you can do, one, be involved in your school board. Those elections are happening, and your city council, those elections are happening. Know who is running. If nobody's running, maybe somebody needs to step up to the plate. You don't know what difference you might be able to make. But quit sitting back and waiting for somebody else to fix it. There have been some folks who say our help doesn't come on Air Force One. Well, it certainly can, but our salvation doesn't. That's true. But our help certainly can when we have an advocate versus an adversary of our faith in the White House. And I've also heard people talk about the end times. This is possibly just sin times and our own lackadaisical attitudes, our own neglect. It's not maybe that God is even judging us as much as it's consequence of our inaction or our refusal to take action. So, David, the first debate, we've got just a minute left. First debate is Monday night. What do you think?
Oh, goodness gracious. I'll be there for a front row in history. I would just say this, and I'm no kidding aside here, or I have to tell you this, Tamara. Hillary Clinton is one medical episode / coughing fit away from this race being over. If something happens on that debate stage on Monday night, and there's no reason why it very well could happen, she's in big trouble. We have just learned that there will be no breaks, 9 p.m. to 10:30, an hour and a half straight. The Clinton campaign, what we have just learned.
I got to jump in because we're out of time. I should have asked you that earlier. We're out of time. Folks, here's what you can do. Pray. Pray truth is revealed, falsehoods are exposed. Pray for all the candidates. It's not her health. It's the health of America should she become president. And so, David Brody, thank you for joining me. Folks, you've been encouraged. Never be complacent.